Hi everybody, my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning and welcome to my channel. So this week we're going to be rescuing another burl. This is a cherry burl, and as you can see it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's actually split all the way through it and it is not safe to turn on the lathe. So this is a prime example of great use for resin. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to cast that in resin. We're going to save it. And along with all of that, I plan on doing some coring on this. So I really hope to get at least 3 bowls out of this bowl blank from the coring. And of course, we're going to use the Korpro cutter from Hunter Tool Systems to do that. So anyway, that's this week's video. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Anytime that thumbs up happens certainly helps with the channel as well. And of course, for the 25,000 subscriber giveaway bowl, we're going to be picking names from the comment down below. So please leave a comment. All right, well, let's get to the bandsaw and get this trimmed up and we'll go from there.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's actually anchor seal on the outer part of this burl. So I think it's important to remove that stuff that may prevent the resin from penetrating it. So that's why I like to remove it before I do any resin work. And of course, brushes to go in my drill, little pick tools. It's really important to blow all this material out of there, because if you don't, sure enough, you're going to get some of it suspended in the resin, and nobody wants that.
All right, so our burl is clean, and even after cleaning, it's it's about ready to fall apart. Now we have a problem. This form I made fits exactly inside my pressure pot, but this is too tall. This is really punky, and I know that it is going to eat up a lot of resin. But I mean, I don't want to lose this awesome detail. Look at that. So you've seen this before on my channel. I'm going to use some 6mm poly vapor barrier. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a heavy-duty plastic. So what I'm going to do, set the burl in here. This is heavy enough that I don't think that it's going to float. There. So what I'm going to do now is set this in the pressure pot, and I'll trim this and then tape it to the inside of the pressure pot. Man, I hope this works. If it doesn't, it's going to be a huge mess. But I did do this with the cherry burl vase, which was cherry. Actually, it may even come from the same place. After I get that done, I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what I've come up with. The tape is really just there to keep the plastic pushed back along the sides. It probably would be ideal if you had something that was kind of plastic that was kind of spring-loaded to push against it, so you don't have any of it encroaching in on where the pour is going to be. I'm happy if we can get to a level about here. This here it's kind of rotten, so I don't think we're going to be able to save it anyway. And it's not going to work for coring anyway, so as long as we can maintain a level up to, say, the bottom of the tape here, I'm hoping that we'll have a really good solid blank to do some coring on. Anyway, let's mix up some resin. Gonna go with the Deep Cast from Designer Epoxy.
The one thing that I really like about Designer Epoxy is it's a 2-to-1 resin, so 2 parts A, 1 part B. And so, you can use literally any measuring device or cup. All you have to do is put a mark on it, And as long as you follow that mark, then you'll be all right.
The lilac purple was such a hit with the Peppermill Extravaganza that that's what we're going to use again. Now I've only used it in just the Peppermills. I don't think I've used this anywhere else. So, you know, it should be interesting to see what it's like as a big resin pour. And I debated on making this translucent, but you know, I don't think that I want to. I want to leave kind of the translucent one for the box elder burl because I have more of that coming up as well. Anyway, we'll start with 2 of these and we'll go from there. Here we go. I don't think it's going to be near enough. There's a huge void in this. Sure is pretty. Look at all the air coming up. Well, I'm going to mix some more. Be right back. Alright, so this is probably another liter, I think. There, that's pretty much perfect level. It really can't go much higher than that anyway. Let's just hope we don't have any leaks. And we'll see you in a couple days. Alright, well, it's time to find out if this thing leaked or not. Fingers crossed that it didn't. Because if it did, we might be in trouble. Wow. Is that ever pretty? Wow. I gotta start making resin tables with this stuff. This is awesome. Alright, well, let's see if we can get it out. May have to take this in and put it upside down on the bench in order to get it. Yep, let's do that. Well, what do you think? Did it leak? Oh yeah, it's coming. Just hasn't gotten all over it. Why do I do this to myself? Hey, at least I didn't cast it right in the pot, okay?
So there was no leaks, but I mean, it was so tight in the pressure pot that I got a lag bolt. I think this is a 3/8" lag bolt, and drilled it down through the center just to give me something to grab a hold of to pull it out, and then eventually come out fine.
Well, it's good. The plastic never leaked. The mold is still brand new.
This is something you can do as well. It's just a pair of calipers that fit exactly inside my form, and you know, I just kind of find where the center is, and as long as it's touching all sides around, then you know it's centered.
It's hard to believe that I actually drilled that without measuring it pretty much in the center. I guess you get lucky sometimes.
Starting here with the 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth, and I'm gathering up shavings for a future project. Don't know exactly what that's going to be, but I do this with a lot of the resin work that I do behind the scenes. I don't necessarily show it every time, but I do try to recycle some of this resin as much as I can. And you know, it's cutting well here because the majority of this inlay is burl and not resin. So I stick with the bowl gouge for quite a bit of this. And yes, I'm wearing a glove. This resin coming off there can be quite sharp. Uh, I'll actually get a new pair of gloves and cut the fingers off them. If you have gloves that have fingers in them, a lot of times the wood and the resin will go down inside the glove, and then you're dealing with all these resin bits in the ends of your fingers. So I always typically cut the fingers off. I usually wait till they're at the end of their life before I do this. I know that some people have commented, "Oh, Jim needs a new pair of gloves," but Jim actually sometimes will destroy a new pair of gloves in order to make a turning glove. Just defining the foot area here. Like I said, I plan on coring this. So in order to do that, I definitely want to put a tenon on this. Um, I'll touch on tenons and mortises. I'm not a fan of mortises, especially when you're dealing with resin. They can be quite brittle. So if you try and grab this with a mortise, there's a chance that you're going to either break the resin apart or it's just not going to work for you. I mean, I've had plenty of mortises fail and not a lot of tenons fail. So especially, I anticipated that the coring on this was going to be pretty rough. So that's why I went with a tenon, and that's why I generally pretty much always use tenons.
Okay, so we're getting ready to core out here. Now, this coring rig and these spacers that I've got are set up for rough turning. That means when this comes in, it's going to leave me an inch to an inch and a quarter of thickness in the base of that bowl so that when it goes on the shelf to dry, there's lots of material to true it up after it's been dried. Here we're working with a dried product, and I mean, I don't want to get greedy here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this in another ½ inch so that we'll leave, say, 3/4 of an inch in the base of the bowl. That way, it'll give us lots of flexibility as far as fixing it back onto the lathe. So, I mean, I'm going to use these as a reference guide and then move things in ½ inch. The other problem is, so this is my number 3 knife, and we'll be able to use this to get the last one. I need to start with the number 2 knife set. And again, this is the one-way coring system if you're not familiar with it. And I'm going to try and get 2 bowls with this same cutter, with the same knife. So it's a little different from the way that I normally do it, and we'll have to do some measuring to make sure that we don't go through the bottom of each bowl. But you know, it's one of these things that, you know, coring that big burl with the resin, I mean, there's going to be a lot of money gained from that, so you'd be foolish not to try it. And we're going to put the Korpro cutter to the test. I'll tell you right now, this resin is hard, so it's going to be interesting to see how it performs. Again, this is from Hunter Tool Systems, and there's a link in the description for 10% off your next order. Anyway, let's get this laid out first. I'll show you, I've got it marked out on the bowl here, what I want to do with this. I'm hoping to get 4 bowls out of this one blank. Okay, so this would be a lot simpler if I had the #1 knife set from One Way. I usually don't go for bowls this small. I mean, that bowl is only going to be, oh, 5 inches probably in diameter when it's done. But of course, this is a different case because it's resin, so there's value there. So I guess maybe I'll order a #1 knife set too to help out with this. The reason why it complicates things is because since I don't have the #1, my spacer, I'm using the #3 spacer like I showed earlier, but I've moved it even further away. So I'm going to use the #2 to come in and take the first bowl. Then I'll move it in 3/4 of an inch to meet up with the #3 spacer. Take out this bowl. So here's the 4 bowls. So you got the center one here and here, and you can see the size difference. This is kind of the issue that I'm having. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of split the difference. Because these are going in on an angle, the outside bowl, even if this were to get thin, you just got to take it down a little. The further you whittle away at the top of this, the wider it will get. So, I'm hoping to get 4 out of this. Again, I've got 3 or 4 coring videos on my channel that show this process, but it's on green wood and not, dry wood like this. So this is all kind of new to me. Anyway, let's get to it. I should also mention that I have my lathe on its most powerful torque setting, and we'll start off at 350, and I'll see if I can crank it all the way up to 625. We'll just see how the resin behaves.
So this is being shot in real time, and I mean, look at the shavings coming off that. I was immediately impressed that, I was curious to see if it was going to chip out, but it actually cut very, very cleanly.
Where's that cherry is some hard. The vibration's actually making the floor kind of vibrate. So anyway, this is definitely going to be quite a test on this Korpro cutter, that's for sure. Now I'm going quite slow. I could actually probably go faster than that, but I'm not going to. I think this might be ready to pop out. Something to try it out with. Well, there you go. I mean, hey, it's nothing to write home about. I don't even really know. I don't know, make a tiny little dish out of it. My wife said she wanted it for something. Anyway, we'll finish it. #2 coming up. All right, so I've advanced the rig 3/4 of an inch in. Set up for the second bowl. See what happens. $6.25, $6.25. Yeah, I'm going to take the speed down. I don't like the, it's kind of grabbing hard. Because that dried burl is no joke. And the resin, of course, this is 5 days after it was cast. It's starting to get really hard too.
Some of you might be wondering why I'm not using my tailstock, and that's because even with the extender that I have, I can't reach the bowl. The rig is in the way, so that's why I'm not using any tailstock support.
So far, so good. It's going to be really interesting when we get out here on the end with all this resin to see how this acts. But this, right now, I'm into this super hard dry burl, and it's bouncing around. I'm just trying to take as light as cuts as I can. This is the first time that I've really cored dried wood like this. I did the brain burl, I did 1 cord of that. Anyway, other than that, that's it.
Usually when I'm coring green wood, I'll run the cutter in about 1 inch before I move the support. Here, you know, I'm going probably about a 1/2 inch, no more than 3/4 of an inch, before I move in the knife support.
I really don't want this to go flying across the shop because it's probably going to crack this resin. So I'll give it a tap here. Come on, baby. See how much it's moving. Sweet. There you go. I don't know, it's awful thin on the bottom here, so we'll have to see. Gonna have to have a really small foot on it in order to make this one happen. Regardless, pretty cool. Number 3 coming up. All right, so I've moved it in 3/4 of an inch, and now I have my number 3 knife set in here. I changed over the cutter because it's the only one I have right now. I know that when it was in the number 2 knife that it was tighter. It was tight when I put it in. It was still tight, but it was really easy to break free. So make sure you check that regularly when you get into this really hard material. A lot of vibration, so I suspected it was maybe working loose a little bit. So just keep an eye on that. Same thing with your chuck. Always keep checking your chuck because it could vibrate loose again. And of course the rig itself, the bolts that hold it to the lathe, make sure you check those. All right, this is number 3 and number 4. Let's see how we do. So far, I mean, it still looks really plenty sharp. Let's do it.
So as I start into doing this final core, you see me kind of pushing down on the knife set, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know why I should have to do this. Everything was adjusted properly before I started. And then a little ways into this, I remembered that I hadn't switched over the number 3 support, and I'm using the number 2 support. The knives are close, but they're not that close.
The resin's cutting better than the wood is.
So yeah, at this point, still haven't figured it out. I'm like, man, why is this vibrating so bad? Anyway, eventually I wise into it. I don't know, it must have been Monday. You know how it is.
There, hopefully you guys can see better.
Anyway, I think it's about here that I realized I'm like, oh, I got the wrong knife support in there. So after I got that changed around to the proper knife support, things seem to really work a lot better. So if you've got one of these corn rigs, make sure you pay attention to that. Unlike me.
The cutter itself still feels sharp. I haven't rotated this yet, so I'm just going to rotate it and see if it actually cuts better. And if it does, then that tells me that maybe it's getting a little dull. I bet you it's still fine for greenwood, but this dry burl and resin, not so much. But, I mean, that may not be it at all. It may be just that this is just so hard, it's really doing a number here. So we'll flip the cutter. You can flip it once, and we'll see if it cuts any better. Don't drop it, like I just did. If you don't have a big magnet in your shop like this is a floor magnet you can go along the floor with, you should get one, because it would have been really hard to find that tiny little screw without this. See how small this screw is? It's tiny. Now I think I've got this turned around on the new edge. Kind of lost it there when we dropped the screw. I think that's the sharpest edge. I don't know. It's very hard to tell.
Like I said, it was Monday.
This is jumping around quite a bit. I'm still a firm believer that it's just that the burl is so hard. I think we're down pretty much past the resin, and we're just pretty much into burl now. I mean, we're in that far. So yeah, it's mostly burl that we're into now. Anyway, let's see what happens here. We're getting there. Shall we try a knock? Media. There you go. Now that is a save. Got some filling to do down here. All right, well, how cool is that? We got our big bowl. Where's my tape measure? Anyway, this one's, shy of 11 and a half. So this is probably going to finish out at hopefully 11 and a quarter. This one here should finish out at 9 and a half. This one, 7 and a quarter should do it. And this little tiny bowl, I don't know, 5 inches roughly. So there you go. I don't think that's possible without the Korpro cutter. I've used the one-way system, the cutters, and you would have sharpened, I don't know how many times in order to get this, if you could get it. This burl's super hard. The resin is actually quite hard now. We do have some thermal cracking. I don't know if it's thermal cracking or what it is. If it's chip out. Let's try and get this. Try and show you. There. I think it's thermal cracking. I don't think it's actually from This one's a no big deal. It's down inside along here. See that? Good news about that one is I'll be able to turn this away. This is quite thick through the belly of the bowl here. And where that is, it's actually on wood right here. So there's no, that's not going to matter at all. The one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to fill these, and I'm going to fill them with, I think, gold resin. That's what I'm going to go with. So there's one here. I don't know if I'll even bother with that one. I might do it just in case. It's still in the final piece after it's remounted. So that'll be the last thing that I do for today. I'm just going to mix up some Pro Series and put some tape over there and filler, and we'll be at this tomorrow. See you then. So it's the next day. Before I left, I mixed up a little bit of gold and put it in those voids that were there. This one will probably stick around. This one will probably lose. I didn't bother with it inside. It's going to be all turned away anyway. This is the second largest core. I didn't get enough material in here, so not a big deal. I got to flatten this, so I'll just incorporate that in the foot anyway. And the other two are fine. This one's really thin, so we're gonna have to have a pretty small foot on this to make it work. And well, we'll be able to get that one too. Just want to show you this. Gabriel just sent me these from Designer Epoxy. They are pearl dyes, and they also have alcohol dyes as well that are new in stock. So you can get 25 for $45.95, and that's a pretty darn good deal. Designerepoxy.ca. Anyway, let's get to the lathe and I'll show you how I'm going to put the glue box in the bottom of these. So if you haven't seen this before, this is the Stronghold Mega Jaws from One Way for their Stronghold chucks. And as you can see, it's adjustable in and out. These little buttons move. This just happens to be set up from the last time I used it, and it fits this bowl perfectly. It says right on the jaws that you're not supposed to go any more than 1,000 RPM with this. So that's on there pretty good. Because this bowl has a good taper to it, these jaws will work really well. You're not going to pull that out of there. Highly unlikely you are. When a bowl is more straight, like the outside bowl we have, then it can be a little more worrisome and it doesn't seem to be secured as well. I'm going to bring up the tailstock onto this. Anyway, we'll clean this off and then we'll get the glue block on it. So I didn't get this on there as good as I wanted. I wasn't paying attention and I grabbed, when I welded on these washers onto here, didn't exactly get it on all that well. Ordinarily it's not an issue because when the waste block goes on here, you're chewing up the waste block, so that really doesn't matter. But when you're pinching it onto the bottom of the bowl, it does. So, you know, it's off a little bit, but still going to be fine. Anyway, if you do use this method, make sure you watch out that you don't get a made up faceplate that's wobbly like that. I don't know if you see it, but there's some cracks running along here. So I'm just going to use some thin Starbond. And I don't think this is going to be that big of an issue. I just don't want this crack to migrate any further. I plan on turning this all away, so that shouldn't be an issue. I might hit some of these other little spots here as well. There's a few of them around. And then we'll try and get this turned down to its final dimension. I think it's going to be pretty darn cool though. So this looks like it's continuing. There's actually a few areas here. So this must be actually thermal cracking. I'm guessing. So anyway, I think that I still got enough thickness in the base to turn this away, but just for a little bit of insurance, I'm actually going to put some more of this CA glue in. And of course, we're going to use Starbond Thin. And you've seen me do this before. I'm going to put the lilac purple in there to tint it. And that way it blends in nicely. You know, the only other way you really can do it is if you actually do the resin, and then you're probably going to have to wait 12 hours. So that's not bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here. I'm not going to use any accelerator. I'm just going to let it sit. And then, you know, it's not like I don't have other bowls to do while I'm waiting for this to cure up. There, I'm just going to kind of prop it in this configuration, let it cure, and come back to it later on. All right, so desperate times call for desperate measures. It has been so hot here in Eastern Ontario that it's affecting filming. I can't, cameras keep shutting off. So I'm just going to leave the shop closed up and use the AC unit. So you're probably going to hear it running in the background. But all I got to say is,
Here I'm using the Easy Woods finisher. It's a good choice. I know Hunter Tools has some of these tools, and you're going to see them in upcoming videos as well. And so I'm really kind of stoked to see what Mike Hunter can provide us for scraping tools like this. Something to you know, be the equivalent of the Easy Woods finisher and the rougher. Anyway, those will be coming up in the future. Stay tuned. So the drill that I'm using here, as you can see, it's a DeWalt, and it has an RPM of 2400. Now, ideally, the way that I like to sand when I'm doing just straight wood is I like to run the lathe at 1200 RPM, if that's possible, and then the drill runs flat out. So I just find that that gives me the best cut with the sandpaper and the best finish. During my short resin career, there's been a lot of people say, you know, you're not supposed to uh, sand resin at these speeds, and you know, all I've got to say is, look at the results. I don't know what to tell you. It works for me. I wasn't able to get that speed on here because of it was a little out of balance, but I think it was probably around 750. Anyway, that's the way I'm doing it. It's working, so I'm sticking with it.
Well, the time has finally arrived. First coat of solid bowl finish. This might be the nicest one yet. Let me get the finish on the back side of this and I'll get it off and look at it. Well, that is just plain and simply awesome. What a beautiful bowl. Alright, so I'm not going to show all these bowls because it's going to take forever to do, but I will show you what filling I had to do. Probably the worst spot was here. Goes all the way through to the back side. Crack there. The resin itself though is pretty good. There's pretty much no voids in it. There's our thermal crack that was filled in with gold. Put this down there. Some gold, a little bit of bling in there. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. Just a few spots here and there. So anyway, I'm just going to trim this up and sand it, and I'll bring you back when I put the coat of finish on. The best part.
I decided to leave this clip in, and that's just to kind of show body position when I'm sanding. I deal with tennis elbow in my right arm, and I find it's best to try and keep that drill in tight to your body, and it seems to be easier on your arms. It takes the strain off your arms, strain off your elbows and your shoulders. Um, anyway, it's the way that I do it, and I mean I've done this for a number of years now, and I just find that this is the easiest way to take the strain off your arms. And you're just swaying back and forth on your hips, and you're not pressing hard on the sanding pad either. This is something that a lot of beginners have an issue with. You push too hard, you're going to get heat checking in your bowl.
This is the largest core. It is all sanded up. I'm going to get its first coat of solid bowl finish. By General Finishes, I should mention. I don't know, this one might even be cooler than the other one. Looks like that's almost like suspended, you know? And the color on the backside. I'm looking at the camera there, and it's showing it's kind of bluish, but it's not. It's quite purpley. Awesome, awesome stuff. That pearl. Darn right, amazing stuff. All right, so here's our ginormous bowl. It's the size of my hand. It's not very big. That's a beautiful bowl too. It's very small, size of my hand, and I don't have very big hands. Anyway, it's pretty small, but it's really nice. See you tomorrow.
Here I'm using Triple E to buff out the first coat. It responds well, so that's why I like using it. And if you use steel wool, there's always a risk of leaving steel wool bits behind. So I prefer to use the Triple E as opposed to steel wool, but sometimes you have to use it. And of course, denatured alcohol, or in this case, it's methyl hydrate. I know you can use naphtha. Once I run out of this, I'll be going and getting some naphtha or camp fuel. I guess it's supposed to be better.
This is the second coat. Salad bowl finish by General Finishes. If it needs any additional coats after this, which it probably will, I will use the same method or possibly use steel wool between the next application. I do find that buffing with Triple E when using the solid bowl finish by General Finishes tends to perform well, so for now we'll stick with buffing with Triple E. This is pretty much the last large cherry burl that I have, actually. I got maybe some smaller ones. Another one that might be the same as this, but shorter. And of course, burls are hit or miss. Some years I get lots, some years I don't. So far, I haven't had a good year for finding burls. So hopefully, that changes. Let's get this off and have a look at it. 2 coats might do it, I don't know, we'll have to see. Wow. It's bottom day.
Of course, using the old handy dandy vacuum chuck. I actually showed the operation of this last video. Anyway, works great. Get one.
Well, that's it for the video. Let's have a last little look at our bowls. This one, there's that gold that I filled in. There's one other spot. It managed to stick around, but it's not very prominent. Just a little bit there. You know, that lilac purple, I mean, it's spectacular. And looking this way through it, it is translucent. And I mean, it's just an absolutely beautiful effect. It almost looks like the ghost pigments. Swirl that's going on, the different variations in the pigment, I mean, just spectacular. This bowl ended up being 11 1/4 by 5 1/4. There's the bottom. One thing that if you don't turn epoxy, you'll know that you won't know. You can't actually write on the epoxy and then put the finish over top of it. And these do have 3 coats of solid bowl finish by General Finishes. So that's the first one. It's actually got a new home. Sorry if anybody was really wanting to get one of these. And again, this one is 9 1/2 by 3 3/4. And again, look at the variations in color. Absolutely fantastic. Very, very cool. There's the bottom. Not much wood to write on there. Of course, I'll give you a shot of the inside. Sorry it's so shiny. It's a nice day today and I've got just the right amount of sun to do these, so I prefer to do these in natural light. Here's the second core. Start here. 7 1/4 by 2. And wood all the way around so I could do it how I normally do. And last but not least is our tiny little dish. It's 5 by 1, but even it's got different color variations in it. Very, very neat. You know, there's not a huge amount of value here. It's got a little heart on the bottom. I think my wife might claim this, I'm not sure. So, you know, the great thing about epoxy is that I'm able to work with woods that I wouldn't be able to work with before. When I was just doing natural materials with CA glue, there's no way that that CA glue and natural materials are going to hold that burl together. No way. Really sketchy. If you tried to mount that on the lathe, there's a good chance you might eat it. So, you know, this is where epoxy is king over natural inlays with CA glue. And again, it allows me to work with pieces that ordinarily I would not have been able to work with. That is the absolutely fantastic thing. And I mean, come on, look at that. And you can tell that it's pretty much split all the way through. Absolutely fantastic. Again, you know, hats off to Hunter Tools. That Korpro cutter, I don't know if this was possible to do without it. That carbide tip, the whole setup of that rig really works well, and I recommend getting one if you do any coring. And that just shows you that, you know, there's probably $800 in finished product here. Yeah, you know, it's a little painful to buy the cutter up front, but in the end, it is going to pay you back. This is the way that I really want to go with my resin work. I don't want to just do one bowl. So in the future, I'm actually going to cut bowl blanks whole that I see have all kinds of condition issues, and then I'm going to pour resin, and then I'm going to core them. That way, I'll be able to recoup more money back from, you know, resin costs and sandpaper costs and whatever cost that you have. It's a no-brainer. I really recommend getting one. And again, before we started on that, it had 47 cuts on that cutter already. I thought that it was getting dull, so I flipped it around and there was no difference. So you know what? I flipped it back, so now it's got 51 cuts on it. 4 of them, 51 cuts. And, you know, 4 of them being resin cuts and major resin cuts. So, you know, 2 thumbs up to Hunter Tools. So make sure you check them out. But all the information is in the description down below for American customers and Canadian customers. Anybody else in the world, you're going to have to get a hold of them by email and ask them what they can do. But he's offering a 10% discount when you order. Again, Designer Epoxy. If you're going to order Designer Epoxy, please use code InlayJim21 at checkout to receive your discount. Sandpaper.ca, it's just Inlay Jim, and Starbond Adhesives is Inlay Jim as well, and those are 15% for Starbond and 10% for Sandpaper.ca. So anyway, it's all down there in the description down below. Next week is kind of a funky project. I've got some really wormy wood, so we're going to combine that with resin and see what that's going to look like. So far, it's different. I'll give you that. It's different. So make sure you come on back for that. Anyway, till then, take care, stay safe. Don't forget that thumbs up. Don't forget that bell, you know, when the video goes up. And we'll see you next time.